In this video, we show you couples that will definitely make you ask yourself twice whether it can really be true. We are talking about pairs who voluntarily put themselves in life-threatening danger every day, who keep a creepy shared secret, and who practice rituals that are reminiscent of horror films. Some of them also simply look completely disturbing. These relationships really break every boundary of what is imaginable. Let us start right away with this family from St. Petersburg. Trina and Mike have an extremely disturbing habit. They are addicted to enemas. Yes, you heard that right. They are addicted to regularly emptying their bowels. And by regularly, we do not mean they do it every now and then, but 4 times a day. However, that is not even the craziest part, because Trina and Mike do not use a common laxative for their enemas, they use coffee. It was Trina who came up with this absurd idea 3 years ago after she had repeatedly struggled with stomach problems. The coffee enemas helped her. Her husband Mike found it extremely disgusting at first, but then he gave it a chance and tried it once. Since then, he loves it just as much as his wife, and the two of them now argue about who gets the first enema in the morning. They spend more than 5 hours every day preparing and performing the enemas. While they let 1 liter of coffee liquid run into their large intestine, they lie on the floor and do everyday things like answering emails or watching television. Afterwards, they go to the toilet and say they feel extremely cleansed from the inside. Science, by the way, has not proven that this is healthy in any way. Doctors advise them not to continue this addiction, but Trina and Mike say they cannot live without their coffee enemas. And now to a couple who may live a normal life, but look anything but normal. We are talking about Gabriela and Victor Peralta from Argentina and Uruguay. They hold a very special world record, and as you can probably guess, it has to do with their disturbing appearance. They have the most body modifications of any couple. That includes all aesthetic changes to the body that are not medically necessary. Gabriela and Victor have had 98 such procedures done. The result looks like this: huge holes in their ears, silver teeth, a split and tattooed tongue, black and neon yellow eyeballs, reshaped ears, and a completely tattooed body. They have also had implants placed in their heads and other parts of their bodies. Most recently, Victor even had horns implanted. Meeting them in the dark gives most people a huge fright because they now look more like aliens than humans. Gabriela and Victor, however, love their body art and are happy to have found a partner with whom they can live out this disturbing hobby together. Of course, this also means often pushing themselves to their pain limits because the procedures are anything but harmless. But even that did not seem to be enough for Victor, because at one event he had hooks pierced into his back and then hung himself from them. We do not even want to imagine what kind of pain that must have been. This next couple also loves the extreme. Angela Nicolau and Ivan Birkus from Russia have a hobby that puts them in life-threatening danger every single day, and that is no exaggeration. Their current chosen home, New York City, is perfect for their daring hobby, since there are, as we know, plenty of skyscrapers there. Angela and Ivan love climbing them, illegally and without any safety equipment. They are known for taking dangerous selfies on the tallest buildings in the world. The photos and video recordings that result from these risky climbing actions give every viewer a strong, tingling feeling in the stomach. Sometimes they climb hundreds of meters up barefoot and without a rope, and in some videos you can see how they almost slip. Sometimes they simply pose together on a narrow ledge on the side of a building, without holding on to anything. Just one gust of wind and they could lose their balance. With each of these actions, a single wrong step would mean death. And yet the two of them cannot stop putting themselves in this danger again and again. Yes, sometimes it is a shared passion that brings couples together. In the next case, however, it is quite macabre to speak of a passion. In September 2017, construction workers found a lost mobile phone on a sidewalk, which at first was nothing unusual, but it contained very disturbing photos. The construction workers took this as a reason to alert the police, and shortly afterwards, several officers were standing at the front door of Natalia and Dmitry Bakshiv from Krasnodar in Russia. The lost phone could be traced back to them, whereupon a house search was immediately ordered. What was found there was something even the most experienced police officers had never seen before. Body parts, skin packed in jars, and pictures of the couple striking disturbing poses with corpses. In addition, there was a gruesome handwritten recipe book, including horrific video instructions. Although all these terrible finds painted a very clear picture, namely that they were dealing with a cannibal couple, the evidence was not sufficient to identify possible victims. DNA traces and witnesses were missing. Only the murder of one woman could be proven, and for that they were sentenced to up to 12 years in a high-security prison. The public, however, suspects that there must have been up to 30 victims who were dismembered and eaten by Natalia and Dmitry. Next, we come to a couple whose story is not really disturbing, but above all, moving. The 10-year-old girl Emma Edwards from Walkertown in the US state of North Carolina married her childhood sweetheart Daniel Williams in the summer of 2023. What is disturbing here is not the fact that two underage children got married, but rather what lies behind it. Emma Edwards had terminal leukemia. The doctors told her family that her illness could no longer be cured and that she only had a few days left to live. Emma's last wish was therefore to marry her childhood love, Daniel. Her family and friends did not need to be told twice, and just a few days later, a wedding ceremony was organised in her grandmother's garden. Of course, this was not an official wedding, but the family did everything they could to make it look as real as possible. Almost 100 guests were invited, including doctors, nurses, and teachers, everyone dressed up, and Emma was allowed to wear a purple princess dress.
Emma, do you take Daniel Marshall Christopher Williams Jr. to be your love from this day forward?
Only a few days after her dream came true, she died. From this sad story, we now move back to an absolutely crazy couple. Alexander Kudlay and Victoria Pustovitova from Ukraine came up with an extremely disturbing idea to save their relationship. After the two had repeatedly separated because of endless arguments, 33-year-old Alexander finally said in one argument, "Then I will just chain you to me." And they took that literally. Victoria agreed, and they actually handcuffed themselves together. If you think this was just a short-lived joke, you are mistaken. The two of them carried out this experiment for an unbelievable 3 months. For 123 days, they managed their everyday lives together. They had to cook together, shower together, and even work together. Since Alexander is an online car salesman and Victoria is a beautician, that was possible. However, they had absolutely no privacy. Most people are probably wondering how they managed their toilet visits. They did it in such a way that the other always waited outside with a hand on the door. Over time, they got used to being together 24/7. And yet, the experiment failed. Because once their handcuffs were finally removed, they could not wait to separate from each other permanently. But it gets even more disturbing with the next couple from Austin in Texas. They call themselves Countess Leah and Count Tim. As the names already suggest, they do not see themselves as normal people. They are firmly convinced that they are vampires, and they certainly look. They have had real crowns made for their canine teeth, so that they have the typically pointed vampire fangs. If they wanted to, they could definitely cause harm with them. But to truly feel like vampires, they were still missing another typical characteristic: drinking blood. Now it gets really disturbing because Leah and Tim actually carry out a daily blood feeding. They say that blood tastes better to them than any food. It is like the best chocolate in the world. And that is why each of them is allowed to suck a little blood from the other's arm once a day. For them, it feels as if they are absorbing a part of the other into themselves. Afterwards, they say that they feel stronger and more full of energy. Well, to each their own. Let's move on to the next case. A 12-year-old girl from Queensland in Australia served her mother a shocking surprise: a positive pregnancy test. Although the conception with her 13-year-old boyfriend was consensual, a pregnancy at that age was definitely not what the two of them wanted. They immediately agreed that they wanted an abortion. However, since at that age you are not even considered capable of making such a decision, a court had to decide whether she was already mature enough to understand the meaning of terminating a pregnancy. The judges agreed, so she was then actually allowed to have an abortion. Having experienced something like that at only 12 years of age is something that very few children can say of themselves. Which of these stories shocked you the most? Write us in the comments and do not forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.